Welcome back to Screenfish Radio. I'm so glad you could join us post Oscars edition. This week we are talking about American Fiction, a film that I've been really excited about, wanted to talk about for months. And for this conversation, I am so happy to have with us a couple of great members of our team. I absolutely am always thrilled to talk to them. Seun Olowo-Ake and Chris Utley. Welcome back to you both. So glad to have you.
Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you for having us.
You sound so polite. But anyway. No, I'm really excited about this conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we do that, I thought we should, since it's just passed, have a little bit of Oscar debrief to get your thoughts on the hits and misses of the night. Or if you didn't watch online, if you didn't watch the ceremony, hits and misses that you've seen on Instagram. But I would love to hear from you both. Is there anything this year at the Oscars that got your attention that you were excited about, positively or negatively?
Lily Gladstone was robbed. Period. Point blank. I say it every year about somebody. They always manage to give the trophy to the wrong dang person. And all due respect to Emma Stone, because I did see Poor Things, and that movie was fantastic. But Lily Gladstone should have won that thing for Killers of the Flower Moon. Just for the places that she was able to go and into the depths of suffering of her character and to come back rising like a phoenix. Um, all of that. It was like I'm sitting in the theater like, oh, it's over. She's got it. But next thing you know, during the pre-orders run, Emma Stone starts winning over here. Emma Stone starts winning over there. I'm like, eh, okay. I mean, she was great, and the movie was fantastic, but they gotta give it to Lily. They gotta give it to Lily. They gotta give it to Lily. But they wet the bed, as the Academy always does.
See, I don't disagree. I don't disagree because I was pulling for Lily. I thought I was really excited to see. I really wanted to see Lily win. But robbed? Like, do you think she was robbed? Like that suggests that Emma was like seriously, I don't it almost suggests that Emma didn't deserve it because I felt like this year was sort of split down the middle between the two of them. And I was pulling for Lily, but I didn't feel like robbed was the term, but I don't know. I'm just wondering if that's if like you actually think it was that wrong a choice.
Yes, I do.
Okay. That keeps it simple.
I mean, for the reasons that I mentioned before, and and half of this is politics too. Half of it is body of work and who they like and blah blah blah. And like I said, I appreciate what Emma did in the thing. I mean, it's pretty doggone fantastic to go from the mind of an infantilized individual who can barely put two steps together and have motor functioning skills, and that evolution to a full fleshed out woman taking agency over her life, you know, and being able to, stand tall and reign supreme. Appreciate that. But come on now. That doesn't even begin to compare to the gravitas, the weight, and just the full body and breadth of what Lily Gladstone was able to deliver in that in Killers of the Flower Moon.
That's
And
fair.
that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I really felt that I wanted to see Lily win, but when Emma won, I was more surprised than shocked because, like I said, I've been watching. You've been watching these things. It's been coming down the middle all the way, and I did think that I was not a big fan of Poor Things, but I thought she was great in it, and I thought it was a very pretty movie. So all the wins for visuals and all that stuff, well deserved, well deserved. I would have liked to see Barbie take some of those, but I couldn't say that they weren't deserved.
And
But
I
I would,
think Barbie would have taken a lot of that, a lot of the tech, had poor things just not dropped. If
right.
that movie hadn't come, because I literally was sitting there in the theater. First of all, they did it like in Academy ratio, which is like cramped in. What's the aspect ratio? What is it? 1.66. But even in that small canvas, it's so pretty. It's so
Yeah,
visually. It's like every time you see another shot, it's like whoa,
yeah,
whoa, whoa. And that little crazy Frankenstein makeup they put on Willem Dafoe. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No. Well, that's what I mean. Hair and makeup and the visuals I thought were stunning in the film, and I thought she was amazing. Like I thought she was amazing. I agree with you on Lily, and I think that I just saw it as a missed opportunity. Like I didn't go as far as Rob, but I saw it as a missed opportunity, and I think that I would have loved to have seen her walk away with it 100%.
But
I
I
think
say
Lily
Rob
better.
for everyone who I feel should win and doesn't win every
Right.
single year. That's my tradition. You go on my Facebook, this person was robbed, that person was robbed. Somebody's always robbed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. See, I thought Ryan Gosling was robbed, but I thought it was, and I mean that
You
not
thought
as
he
best
should have won
actor.
over Downey?
No, I felt that fairly strongly. Now, again, now I've been told lately, as I've talked to a couple of people who have spent more time on TikTok. Meanwhile, you should follow us on TikTok. Anyway, no, that the song that they performed, Billie Eilish's song, which I thought was a beautiful song, was bigger on TikTok than it was elsewhere. But I thought I'm Just Ken took over the world. Like, I mean, I just felt like this song became so big. And I thought, as a memorable song for me and from my experience and what I heard on the airwaves and whatnot, I thought, and from what I read, I'm Just Ken was seemed like a bigger song to me. So I was really
But that
hoping.
would have fed into the whole argument of Barbie anyway.
Well, and you know
Why
what?
are we honoring Ken and Kenism and
Yes, I
and
know.
all that versus us trying to center and uplift Barbie and her proverbial sisterhood? And that's what was I made for spoke to,
Yes.
because that popping up over the end credits when you're walking or driving, as I saw it driving out of the place, is like that is a heck of a choice to be. You know, that's like we've just given you all this. But let's sit here and ponder and let this soak into our hearts and souls. And it was like, yeah, that's gonna win best song. I called it the day I saw the movie in July.
And I agree with all of those points. I agree with all those points. And I think that, and that's my, I mean, that's the asterisk on my feelings about I'm Just Ken, because I understand that it actually would not serve the point of the film. I would have been thrilled if Greta had taken Best Adapted Screenplay as this between that one and Cord with American Fiction. Those were the two I wanted to see. My actual fear was that it was going to go to Oppenheimer, because I thought that those two, like, those were the two in that category where I actually thought they might go to Greta after her not getting Best Director, and it would have been well deserved there as well. As much as I love American Fiction, which we're going to talk about, um, but man, I know. So I realize the conflict in that when I say it, but I think that his performance on the Oscars was just so epic. And Simu, my my
Yeah,
Canadian love. I know that Ryan's Canadian, but I mean, I was so glad to see them on stage.
yeah, I
I
caught
was like,
that. I'm like, oh, it's the kids from the movie. This cute.
yeah, and Slash. Anyway, I was like, Slash closing out this anyway. But
Yeah,
I was thrilled to shift direction here. I was thrilled by the win for Godzilla, which I thought was one of those films. It made my top 10 of the year, which shocked me. And it wasn't just because, oh, that was a fun movie. Like it was a real movie. with heart and soul, and it was beautiful.
I
So
am
to see
about
it,
to lose all of my Screenfish analyst points. I had plenty of opportunities to see Godzilla -1, including a golden one, right sometime around middle of February, and I did not go see that movie. And I am kicking myself.
is it gone? Is it still in theaters?
Gone.
Oh, it's gone.
Yep.
Shay, you didn't see that one either, did you? No, it's a beautiful film. It's not Godzilla is the villain, and he's not in it very much. But when he's in it, the visual effects are incredible, and like for $13 million, the special effects that they were able to do were unreal. Like Marvel, take note. It was just it was, but the real story was this man dealing with PTSD. It was a beautiful film. So I was thrilled with that. Were there
I mean,
any? Oh, go ahead.
everything else across the board just on the night. It was literally the Lily Gladstone thing that only had me beefing. Everything was to be expected. I am glad to see Oppenheimer win, even though that sparked a little bit of controversy within my um, Facebook circles because there were a lot of women who complained about that movie being centered in talking about why is it that we're trying to honor this man who created a bomb. And I'm thinking to myself, you kind of tell me you didn't see the movie without telling me you didn't see the movie because they didn't honor this man who created a bomb.
Yeah.
The whole first half of the movie is him making a bold scientific discovery, which he wanted to use to help the Allies win the war. But then he had that great vision in the midway point of the film and saw in which he was able to see the impact of what he had wrought and how that changed his heart and how he got crucified for it. So sad that people didn't see that because the focus was why are we honoring him and why are we decentering the women as if they have no part in the story and no part of the tale. And I'm like, well, that's a different movie for a different writer. So So
Right.
the whole discussion with that just took me back to those conversations, and then they popped right back up again after it won Best Picture, and it's like, okay,
Yeah. Well, I think there's some valid points there. I do. I think that the film is anything but a glorification of war. In fact, I think it was more. It resisted the urge to do that, but I'm happy with it. I'm okay with it. There are about 4 or 5 films of those top 10 that if they did one, I wouldn't have beefed. It was a good year. I would have been
what are
thrilled
those
with the
other ones which
holdovers.
you would have seen? What are the others?
I didn't see them all. I think I saw 7 or 8.
I
Um,
saw six.
yeah, I thought Zone of Interest was incredible. I'm just looking at them here. Holdovers, I would have not have been
Holdovers,
upset if Holdovers had won.
Holdovers was good.
Barbie, I was pulling for Barbie, but I knew it didn't have a chance, but I was pulling for it, and
Barbie almost could have snuck in and upset that whole night. That would have been wild.
yeah,
There would
yeah.
have been revelry and dancing in the streets.
American Fiction, I would have loved. Let me ask you both this then. Maybe this is something. If you had picked the winner of Best Picture, who would it have been?
The one that won.
You would have picked
Again,
Oppenheimer. Okay.
the dude made us sit in 70 millimeter IMAX for freaking 3 hours to watch talk. If that is not the hypnotic power of filmmaking, I don't know what is.
Shay, do you have any views on this? Anything? Well, if you picked the winner, who would it be?
I didn't watch a lot of the films on this list, so I can't even say like they should have won or not. I don't know what's going on. Ignore,
Fair.
just take it out of the. I don't want to be involved in this conversation.
Well, like I said, I would have been happy with any number of them myself. And I mean, I think Barbie winning would have been so much fun. I really do. I think that Barbie winning something major. I was very the like I said, I love that Cord Jefferson walked away, but I would have just as much loved to see Greta get it. But this was like there's some of these categories this year were a bloodbath. Um, but I always go back to shout out to Dave Voigt over at In the Seats, who's on this podcast all the time. He always says the nomination is the award, and I have to agree with him. Like it almost doesn't matter because I think it's important that we get recognition for so many of these different films. Like Zone of Interest didn't have a chance, but I'm so glad that people are like, "What's that?"
Oh, that
Yeah.
movie won some stuff.
Did you
It
see
won
it?
I didn't see the movie, but I mean, it won
Or one
something
international
else, and it won something else too. I thought it won sound, if I'm not
sound,
mistaken.
well deserved. Well, that was another one
I
where
don't know if I
was
can
good.
sit through that with the subject matter. I didn't see it, but
Yeah, I
I'm
recommend it.
I'm in a guard my heart kind of season of life right now.
Oh, okay.
So anything that's like super triggering will, you know, I'll be blubbering in the theater. You'll have to mop me up when it's over, but I'll take your word for it.
Well, I've said before and I'll say again, I've never ever seen a film like this before because this is a film that deals with horrifying subject matter without showing you a single horrifying image. It is so interesting. I can't say maybe not a single horrifying image, but when I think of a film that like I Schindler's List, of course, won Best Picture. Let's talk about that as a
Right.
film about the Holocaust. Was quite graphic and brutal and made you just devastated because of what you were seeing. This devastates you by what you don't see. This is really about the darkness of man's soul, humanity's soul, and it's fascinating. Fascinating. You hear stuff, but you'd never see like the things that you would see in, say, Schindler's List. And that's one of the things I thought was so fascinating about it. It is I know I've potted on this one already with Kevin McLenithan, and it was just an incredible exploration of how evil makes you wonder how evil happens. So it's a pretty powerful film.
Mm.
Um, well, speaking of powerful films, let's use that as our transition. Then let's flip the switch. Let's go over to American Fiction, which is directed by Cord Jefferson. American Fiction tells the story of Monk, a frustrated novelist who's fed up with the establishment that profits from black entertainment that relies on tired and offensive tropes. To prove his point, he uses a pen name to write an outlandish black book of his own, a book that propels him to the heart of hypocrisy and the madness he claims to disdain. The film recently was nominated for Best Picture and won an Academy Award for Best Writing Adapted Screenplay. And as always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers.
Is it rated R for language? And you know why I'm asking?
We've never rated it for language. Right? Some is going to be necessary, maybe in this one. I don't. Or it
This
may
one
happen.
you almost gotta, yeah, you gotta let that one. If we're going spoilers,
Well,
you gotta you gotta rip the Band-Aid off and drop the big one.
we'll put an
We we
asterisk over this
we
one
can
then.
we can cover it up later, but
It is well that kicks us off. So let's hear it. Chris, Shaun, what did you think of American Fiction?
I yield to Shayan.
I really liked it. I will say I saw it at when was tip 7 months ago.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going off of for this. But I remember I really liked it. And I thought it was an interesting um conversation about two sides of an argument that I see play out on social media all the time. And it's almost like you have to pick a side. And I'm glad that the film doesn't, because you don't have to. It's 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 saying it's not about like, do you want to see struggle or do you want to see opulence, but more about how do we authentically tell people's stories, which I really liked.
I had to sit and chew on this one for a long, 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 long time. Because as soon as you saw it in TIFF, you DM me immediately. Bro, let me know the second you've seen American Fiction. Oh my God.
Did I
So
say that? Did I say?
I'm paraphrasing you. But of all the people in the world who wanted to see this movie, I'm sure I was top 5, if not top 3, if not top 2, if not number 1. But
Yeah.
so, and then I saw the trailer, and I'm sat in the theater, and I was screaming with laughter for everything that they showed in that trailer. I'm like, this is gonna be amazing. And so every beat, everything that they showed, it was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I got to it, and it's like, whoa, I didn't expect this. Because it's a tale of two movies at the end of the day. There's everything that Shayun just said and everything that they advertise, which is the absolute utter hypocrisy on so many levels of telling authentic, or what people feel is an authentic Black African American story. Meanwhile, behind the scenes of all this, there is a real American story, which every American or every human being, if we're honest, can relate to. And the big reveal that comes from that is I sat there thinking, is this what certain people really think of us? They don't know that we go through the themes that Monk and his family are going through. And Cord Jefferson's ability to just normalize that and present that in real, actual time and space. That jarred me. That jarred me. Because I went in my theater, fisticuffs, ready for the fight, thinking it was going to be 2 hours of, all the things. And then there's this whole other thing that happens. It's like, whoa. It's like, yeah, that's it. And so I'm wondering, with all the discussions and all the things, how many people really truly know that of all the hyperbole and all the things that go with being Black in America, do they really know, recognize, and understand that we are living and going through real things and real stuff? And that was the dichotomy of that story that really got to me.
This, I think I said this to Shay after we because we saw. Did we see it together? We did. I think we saw it together. Um, I appreciate a film that makes me rethink the way I see the world, regardless of what the film is. This one really changed. I think this may have been had a huge impact on just me on just how to engage conversations, racial conversations, or not engage rather, but to understand. For me, watching it, I obviously I'm one of the white people in the film. And so for me watching the film, it was incredibly, it was like shining a light in my face or a mirror in my face and saying, okay, take a look at how, and not that I thought that all Black stories were told in a certain way or whatnot, but just the idea of even how stories are told and the assumptions we bring into them, just what's the word, subconsciously, um, was transformative for me. Like that was something that I thought was absolutely incredible about this film. It actually, I like what you said, Shay. Um, but because it is a film about a number of different things, and I loved that about it. Even in this conversation, I feel ill-equipped to really talk about it. But I loved
Why
this
is
film.
that though?
I I I
Let's
don't
go
know.
in, man. Why is that?
I don't
I
know.
mean, let's just rip the band-aid off. I mean, there is the stereotypical what everybody thinks black lives are like, and then there's this depiction of what this black family's life is really like. And as it turns out, it's normal just like the rest of y'all.
But I
Which
don't
is
think
why I
that.
like the dichotomy of the title, American Fiction. What is fiction and what is reality?
Yeah.
There's a fictionized version of our lives, which everybody believes, and then there's the reality. We have siblings who pass away suddenly. We have mom and daddy issues that are unresolved. We are trying to navigate through dating and relationships, and our little hangups and insecurities screw a lot of that up. There are, we have to figure out what to do with our aging parents who we can no longer caregive for. And there's all kinds of layers and all kinds of things. And that's just normal lives. And that doesn't get highlighted. What gets highlighted all the time is the my pathology. And I forget what Issa Rae's character's book's name was. They, yeah, that gets presented as who black people really are in America. And it's like, we're not monolithic. We're all just regular people just living our lives, trying to do our thing. And I'm glad this movie was able to show people that. It's like, yeah,
Her book was called "We Lives in the Ghetto."
right.
Yeah.
More on that because there's this reactionary scene which pretty much hooked me, hook, line, and sinker to that movie. We'll get to that, but yeah,
But it's funny. Like you talk about stories there, and it's never been a thought in my mind that this is the totality of Black lives, or the Black experience is whether it's all poverty, all wealthy. I know, uh, for any particular race, that's just not has not been my experience. I know people of all races who have come from poverty, and I know people of all races who've had money. That's not been, but I think what got me in this one is the fact that the idea that those are the stories that are profited from, that's what people want to hear, was
exactly,
really challenging for me.
precisely the point. Exactly, precisely the point. Because one of the subplots is that Monk's real subject matter in the books that he really wants to write are not being centered and uplifted, and he's not seeing a reflection in his book sales. So,
Right.
for all intents and purposes, there's this scene where he walks into the bookstore, and his book should be categorized with the other subject matters that aligning white written books should be found in, but instead they've got him in the black author section along with all the other stuff. And so he goes and grabs all the books and moves them to the other section, and that becomes this thing. Funny scene, but
Yeah, because
yeah,
they're saying, "Well, I'm a Black author, and these are my stories, so they're Black stories," and they're like, "Well, I just work here,"
right,
um,
right,
you know. But that's what I mean. The idea for me that, and even watching, the white publicists go all in on the title of the book for for no reason, um, other than the fact that they're proving the point. They're like, because they don't want to be seen as somebody who's objecting to what's authentic,
they
because
are
they feel like this is
proving
real.
the point. Yep, we saw a lot of that in 2020 and 2021 in America when anti-racism forums started popping up out the woodwork. I've had many variants of conversations with people like those publicists. You know, some of these people swore to become great and mighty friends and connected to our cause. And 2024. We're in people now. So if you're a personal friend of mine and you're watching this podcast and you feel shade, hit dogs holler. That's all I have to say. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm a personal friend of yours, so I don't know how to.
You were a friend before all that, so you don't count.
Okay. Okay. No, I know. Well, I mean, okay. So, well, this is a good question then, maybe, for you both. Shay, you're an author. Hey, we can pump your book. Shay's an author. Um, you can buy her book on Amazon as we speak. Um, I'll even put it on the screen down below. So, what do you think it means then to tell authentic stories without creating or relying upon stereotypes? Because that's what's happening here. We have an author who just wants to tell his story, but that's not the ones that people want, or he's told that those are not the ones that people want to buy, and no one's buying his books. How do we do that?
Man,
Yeah,
you
I think
ruined a perfectly good pondering pause. That was beautiful. Let him breathe.
you said two things on your question because you said like, how do we tell authentic stories? But then in the movie, the example isn't, but the problem isn't him telling authentic stories. It's the people not wanting to hear authentic stories, which is like that's a creator problem and a consumer problem.
Okay.
Um, I think I think like for someone like telling the story, like someone writing or creating something, not relying on stereotypes is, I think this is cliche, but I think it's like it's the listening to real people, or like, yeah, telling stories that you know come from a real place rather than just your assumptions, I think is how we create stories that don't rely on stereotypes. I do find though that this is gonna go into my own trauma a little bit, but I find like sometimes maybe we can get um unsure of if we're doing that well or not. And I'm going to use myself as an example. So when I first moved here, I'm from Nigeria. I don't know if I said this, but when I first moved to Canada in my master's class, they kept talking about like telling Canadian stories, and we need to tell Canadian stories. And I think because of we watch a lot of American stuff, so a lot of people were talking about that, which I understand. But then I started feeling weird because I was like, what is a Nigerian story? Like, um am I telling Nigerian stories well? Am I not telling Nigerian stories well? Am I qualified to tell Nigerian stories? Because I am from Nigeria, but did I have the true Nigerian experience to tell a Nigerian story? There's all those kinds of questions that come up in people's minds. And so I just think, I don't know, rather than the labels of, and this is something I said in my essay too. I was like, I'm a Nigerian, therefore whatever story I tell should be Nigerian. No, but then it depends, I guess. But I think we just need to, yeah, tell stories from a real place rather than from our assumptions or from what we think people want us to say. I think that's how we avoid the stereotyping of everything. I don't know how else you would do something like that authentically.
Well, that's a tough tension because I know you're working on other stuff too. You're working on stories right now that you're excited about. What's that experience like for you? Because that you'd be caught in that tension, surely. You must feel caught in that tension of just like, how do I write who I am, but also write something that people want to read?
Something that honors the story, I think, is more what I think than what people want to read. I
Mm,
think, yeah. So if you're creating something, I think, am I doing this truthfully?
mm.
Um, and that involves a lot of research and humility and asking questions and listening to other people, because that's when the true story will form, I think, when you have different perspectives on an issue or a way of life.
For sure. Okay. Chris, what do you think as a student of the cinema? What do you think?
Oh, life. You see the L. um, it is a telling thing. You got to navigate through the definition of what is and what is not authentic. That's what this movie is talking about. You know, it's gazing at whiteness as a construct, not saying that white people are to be denigrated and hating upon because they're white. That is not what we were saying here. We were saying that whiteness as a gaze has always looked upon a singular list of storytelling methodology and will conclude that that's authentic. And that's not necessarily the case all the time. I mean, look at Monk's Battle. There's books that he really tells, like I said before, you know, which are him expressing and speaking from his heart. And juxtapose that with his decision to write My Pathology, which is the book that he ends up crafting and creating. And there's a
That's
great
not the
scene
title.
with that's the original title.
That's
That's the original title.
not by the end. So.
If you let it breathe, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get you there. I'm gonna get you there. But when he, even in the crafting of that, how he creates the narrative, and there's a great scene where he envisions the father and son character in the room, and he's doing all the hood ghetto tropes and all the things and the lingo and this, that, and the other, and blah 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 blah. And white people just eat it up. They're just like, wow, this is real. I feel that I can see you. And I keep talking about this moment when Issa Rae's character does that god awful excerpt of We Lives in the Ghetto, and you're hearing all the stuff and all the ratchet and all the garbage. And as soon as she finishes, the white woman stands up and applauds enthusiastically, which, like I said, took me out. So I saw the trailer and whatnot. Because in the mind of individuals like that person, that's our authenticness as black people, which means you're putting us in a box. You're limiting us. There's no way that we can just move, that we can have lives that are over and above, beyond and beyond this ghetto fixated narrative. Now I understand why that's there, because in the 1990s, between gangster rap taking hold, gangster rap related movies ended up being the ones that started doing ripples and waves at the box office. You know, New Jack City doing 40 million, Boys in the Hood getting Oscar nominated, and then Menace to Society and this, that, and the other. That inundated portrait of an image shaped, molded, and varied throughout the last few decades will tell a person like that that's the authentic black experience. That's the authentic lived in experience. And so someone who comes in a different cloth and doesn't live under that, and that's happened to me in real life. I had a white female coworker told me I wasn't really black because I wasn't the hood image. Because I went in with my casual gingham shirts and my slacks every day. She was like, "You're not black." I was like, what? Nah, you're not black. I mean, you're a black man, but come on, I know black. It's like, excuse you. A lot of audacity coming from you there, lady. But again, blackness in America has always been under this gun of what is and what is not authentic. Taking it back from 80s, 90s hood tropes. Go back to the blues. Go back to the writings of the 50s and 60s. It's always this notion that we are downtrodden, struggling. To quote the lyrics of the theme song from Good Times, which was not written by black people, by the way. We're always keeping our heads above water, making the way if we can. So much of that inundated starts becoming other people's perception of our reality. And so if we present a different kind and a different cloth of reality, you have people like my white coworker who bristle at it. You have other people who will look at that different depiction of reality, which is more along the lines of suburban Americana, and said, see, they've adapted to our way. That is how all black people should be living, instead of hanging on to this hood stuff. So the push and the pull and the battle and the struggle has always been there. And the film's great at depicting and defining, what that reality looks like, boots on the ground, real. Because again, while all this is going on, and they're in their minds thinking that this imaginary created author who is running from the cops every time he sees a siren and has to bail out the building, and that's keeping it real. He's in the middle of a real situation again, dealing with his sister's sudden passing, his mother's sickness, his brother tripping. Now that he's out of the closet, and navigating through that, and of course having to deal with and navigate through relationships with women that he has come to love, and just can't get himself together to really fully live that out.
That's interesting because, like, from a story perspective, what I'm hearing from you both is that and I want to be careful how I phrase this, that
Don't be careful or nothing. We love you. We trust you.
Okay.
If you're doing anything that's offensive, we'll let you know. You need to speak from your heart, Steve.
Okay. What I'm hearing is that what you want to hear is human stories.
It's not just that it's human. It's don't put Black humanity in one singular box.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When I'm hearing what I'm hearing is about this, I'm saying the boxes are the problem, and I could be wrong. But when I hear human stories like this, that's what I love about this. His story, he's caring for his mom, or his sister's passed. He's caring, his brother is broken. Like you're saying, like these are human moments. Anybody could be dealing with this, and that's part of this experience. That's why I say I want to be careful, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm negating it being part of the Black experience. I'm trying to say that,
and you're not. That's the whole point. What you were saying, Steve, is the point.
Okay.
That again, we are judged, and whiteness' gaze upon Blackness is 100% shaping and formed in those boxes, and all of those boxes have this element of white suffering put upon us, and so that we are forced to live this criminal, ghetto, negative, this, that, and the other. And they're like, yeah, we see you. You don't see us.
Mm-hmm.
My coworker doesn't see me if she's able to determine that, because I'm not showing up with my pants sagging and, yo, what up, cuz I'm up here trying to do this job and everything and all this stuff, but the man keeps trying to F with me, instead of saying, hello, how are you doing? We had a great weekend. Me and my kids went to the movies and went to Buffalo Wild Wings. That does not go with her narrative box. And so that's not authentic to her. And that's not authentic to so many people who claim and think that they know so much about us.
What I loved about this movie is exactly what you're talking about, because we talked about the breaking down of boxes. And it actually is funny. I had a similar experience with this film that I did with Moonlight, when I think it was 2017, because I thought Moonlight, that was the first one too, where I'm watching it. I'm like, when we see films about the LGBTQ community, at that point, we weren't seeing many, or we certainly weren't hearing stories about it from the perspective of the Black community. They were sort of stories told mutually exclusively. But what you had there was a film that said, no, this is happening here too, and this is the challenges of it happening in this particular community in this way, and what is it like to be a young black gay man at this time. And that's what I mean, is like a film like this is highlighting those boxes and ripping them down in front of you, and I love that about it. I love that about this film. um, with that being said, what I'd love to hear, there's a quote in this film. I'm going to throw it out here and see what you both think. One of the quotes within the film is that white people think they want the truth, but they don't. They want to feel absolved. Um,
Again, cue the white woman standing up and applauding. That's that statement in a nutshell.
do you agree? Do you both agree with that? I know it's, I mean, it,
At least in America, that has been the truth over the last 4 years. There's a declaration that they want truth. When George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor were all murdered in succession with one another, and people took to the streets, there was a huge outpouring of "we want truth, we want truth, we want truth," resulting in the formation of a lot of American companies. All of a sudden, Juneteenth becomes a holiday, and they start forming these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs all across the country. It's like you go on LinkedIn, and everybody was trying to hire DEI directors, coordinators. How do we get these stories told? How do we make our coworkers feel seen? How do we get them to feel inclusive and included in what we are trying to do as an organization? All in the name of we want the truth. But over the course of time, the other statement that you ask comes into play. They don't want truth. They want absolution. They want to say, yeah, well, oh well, you know, at the end, that's why the narrative came up that all of this was done to shame white people just for the sin of being white, when it was never about that. So the backlash rolls up, and in their need to be absolved, they're like, they did a pivot, and like all of a sudden we don't need these programs. So now in America, 2023, 2024, you just keep reading about all these companies have eliminated those programs and eliminated all of that stuff. And so a few companies still have them, but for the most part, it's all gone because there's this notion that it's a real tricky thing to say, I want the truth, but at the same time, I don't want the truth to be, it's my fault, I'm the cause, I'm the problem, the structure that I am living under is the culprit here, even though that structure was clearly created in America by me, by us, for us, designed to center us. So much so that we have it on the constitutional record that the those of African descent are only 60% worthy of being counted as human for voting purposes. So, yep. It's just, yep. This is like, don't make that, like the writer said, don't make me feel guilty. I want the truth. Just don't implicate me. Just don't implicate me in the crime.
I'm a middle-aged white cis male. I'm guilty of everything. Uh, or
Like,
feels
this
like
is
it.
so I'm gonna jump in. This is my problem, I think, with the way people speak about race here, I think, is, and where this quote comes in and the implications of it. I feel like when any person of color, in this case, like Black people, African Americans, or other Black people, when they're speaking about their experiences, it's not about the other person. And I find it interesting how it's almost like people write themselves into the story, and so therefore then their feelings about the story matters. When in reality, like it doesn't really. Like if I came and I was like, oh, I have this racist experience and I'm talking about it, I don't need the person I'm speaking to put themselves in the story and then be like, well, people will say, oh, I don't act like that, or I don't usually do that, but I'm not talking about you. Like, even if we all do exist in this structure that benefits a certain group of people or like they perpetuate, I feel like if you're gonna be listening to somebody, then you're listening to the person to hear what they have to say. But I'm saying I always see a lot of people, and it's both sides, people getting angry, like, why would you say that? Or people being like, oh yeah, I really want to help. And they make themselves the subject of whatever is happening, but that's not what is going on. And so I feel like when you say this quote and it's relating to like monks, he's trying to tell a story, which is why I always say I don't think you should write or create something based on what you think other people want to hear, because you're writing about your own feelings, your perspective, your thoughts, your emotions. I feel like the starting point for that is always to say what it is you want to say and honor that truth. And then whatever people do with it afterwards is their problem. But like the point is you shared your experiences. But yeah, when you say like, oh, they think they want truth, but they don't, that's not my issue. Like I don't care what you want. I'm just going to say what I
And see,
want.
that was the whole argument between Monk and Issa Rae's character when they got down to judging the books. And, her not knowing that he was the writer of My Pathology, which by the time it gets to the book judging ceremony, warning, F-bomb coming, is now entitled Fuck. By the time you get to judging F as a book, and she's talking about how all the points that you are making, and I'm sitting there thinking like, didn't you just write the same doggone thing? And we live in this ghetto. What kind of hypocrisy is that mess? It's like, but she justifies it because, hey, I'm getting paid, I'm making money, and I'm gonna take that money and do something good with it. It's like you lose your whole points in trying to judge the merits of this book, then, because you're selling out just like you're saying he is. You can't see it in yourself. Oh, it's different when it's me, because okay, sure.
There was the issue then too of the fact that like those stories do exist in real life. I think that was the point she made. She was like, oh, but there are people like this. And I always hear like that debate on the internet of people being like, I don't want to see Black suffering anymore. But then also people being like, oh, this movie is trying to be white and they don't want to show the realities of being Black. And people keep going back and forth. And it's like, so what is the truth? Well, the truth is, again, like there's no one way to be Black. And so, and that's why I say, I think when you have different perspectives on a way of life or different experiences, that's when we get the truth is all of them at the same time, not one or the other, I think.
And in that conversation between Monk and Issa Rae's character, one of the things they talk about is how is white authors and saying that when people read that, they don't think of that as the totality of the white experience. And there's no box there. It's like, oh well, you can be this, you can be this, you can be this with the white experience, but not certainly with the Black experience, because there's this one sort of box that
And yeah, and that's the whole dichotomy of us telling our stories. It's like, again, we keep flipping back to authenticity because that authentic, because no, because of that image of Black suffering being inundated and repeated over and over and over and over again. Nobody will ever believe that a Black story is a legitimate Black story if the element of suffering is absent.
Mhm.
right.
That was an argument about the biggest sitcom in the 1980s. I won't say the title, but about a certain obstetrician, his lawyer wife, and their family. the narrative was nobody thought that those were real people because of the absence of suffering that was involved in those characters' lives. Like nobody believed that the Huxtables were a real depiction of a black family because again, where's the suffering?
So that was a conversation taking on or
But
taking
the
place
funny
in.
part, yeah, that was a real conversation. Yeah, that was a real conversation. Like if you go track back in interviews, Oprah talks about it, Quincy Jones talks about it. But the funny part is they embraced Will Smith, another controversial figure, in the Fresh Prince of Bel Air because of the notion that he's suffering in West Philadelphia, born and raised, but he's able to be uprooted into his wealthy aunt and uncle's family who lives in Beverly Hills, and their whole push and pull about him clinging to suffering tropes and them living uplifted and trying to teach him that you are way, 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 way better than this. It's the whole banter between Will's character and Uncle Phil.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Will Smith is an interesting example about that, but because I've heard him talk. I think I've heard him talk about those conversations about whether or not he was quote black enough, because of the way he carried himself or whatnot. And this is
That
interesting.
is because of his rap lyrics, because everybody else was doing hard, gritty, you know, not necessarily rooted in suffering all the time. I mean, Run DMC did Suffering Records, and they did party records too, and they did a lot of boasting. And rappers in that time did a lot of boasting about how they're better than the next guy because of their verbal dexterity, this, that, and the other. And here comes Will and Jazzy Jeff making songs about how parents just don't understand, and girls are nothing but trouble, and I can beat Mike Tyson,
Mm.
and that again gets considered as non-authentic because real rap is supposed to be talking about the and the fact that Will's rapping about him stealing his parents' Porsche and getting arrested and all of that. Chris Rock said he got slapped by the corniest rapper ever. That's considered corny because it's not authentic to the continual narrative trope of black suffering. But again, all of that is about authenticity. That's a whole nother layer that the
Right.
movie really doesn't get into. But no, it does though, because black manhood, because a lot of that is on board when you look at Monk and his brother Sterling K. Brown's character. There's a lot of that interplay, as well.
Mm.
It means to be a man and how Sterling K. Brown, in order to take ownership of his manhood, he divorces his wife, comes out of the closet, and pretty much is in his he's swimming in the proverbial pool of all the male relationships that he's been hungering for, and bam, it's right there in your face in the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to, because I still need some help with what the ending was trying to say. I mean, I understand it because I understand the three different scenarios that he imagines in his mind, where fuck wins the prize, and then the FBI agents storm in and the hail of bullets, which is the continual black suffering trope once again. And then there's the other two scenarios. I don't remember which the other two were just offhand. I just remember that one because it was so striking and it was so predictable. It was like, yeah, it was like I'm thinking, are they really about to end this movie that way? And the kicker that it's all a pitch to the wealthy white financier who wants to turn fuck into a movie, or the making of fuck into a movie. and then him and his brother drive off into the Hollywood soundstage sunset thing. That's the only thing I didn't really connect to and see what was really trying to be said there. I researched, but I really didn't get that one. So, what y'all think?
It's not like the machine, right? Like now he's almost like playing into it. What he was
Yeah,
it's the Reese character about is kind of not what he has to do to get his movie made and get the money and live his life. It's just,
right. I get that.
Yeah, I just got the sense that nothing had changed. Like it was here he was now trying to find a balance to be like, okay, I'm going to do this thing and be authentic, but I still have to have these, you know, I called it the Scooby Doo ending because it reminded me, you know, they just kept doing, you know, the different endings. But it's like, yeah, yeah. For those, well, I know Shay loves Scooby Doo, but I don't know if she gets that film reference. But anyway, that's from Wayne's World. But the idea of doing it more than once, I just felt like he was now like it was just like, okay, well, we still have to, and so it was funny, but
And
because
so
it
that's
is
why his
funny.
brother was asking who's going to play him.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Um, we're running out of time. Is there anything else that you two want to talk about with this film before we wrap it up?
Congratulations to Cord Jefferson on your Oscar. If you watch this at all, you're impressed, Steve. Send it to him. See what he has to say. I would love to hear his feedback on our interpretation of this. And I really like his acceptance speech, where he indicated, "Thank you for this honor, but there's a million and one people who are just like me." And instead of trying to give, one movie for $200 million, let's
Yes.
let's divide the money between promising filmmakers and give them $10-20 million a shot, and let's see what we can come up with. Because there's a whole diverse and plethora of authentic stories to be told if y'all would just give people the chance.
I love that. I love that speech. And then I thought exactly like the ending, commercially, it doesn't make sense. I said, it is artistically, it's such a beautiful notion.
Why doesn't
Um,
it make sense commercially?
Pardon?
Why doesn't it make sense commercially?
His okay.
Because that's not the bottom line of the film industry.
That's what I'm saying.
Everybody wants the $1 billion box office grosser. They want the, Barbie made $1.4 billion. That is the biggest movie in the history of Warner Brothers, and that's a 100-year-old studio. Everybody is swinging for that fence now, and so it's easy to just stack up all these casts and plethora of people to take this to invest $250 million plus another 150 in marketing and spend $400 million, and then your return is a movie that could be $1.52 billion, and we can rest our laurels on that instead of taking that 200 million, dividing it up, and letting these stories be told. And this one might make 10 million, this one might make 2 million, this one might make 1 million, but one of these may break and make 50 to 100 million. High risk, high reward versus low risk, low reward. But that's the bottom line of movie studios, because they're not run by creatives, they're run by business folk.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that it's not an incredible point. Like I loved what he said. It sounds beautiful, but I think Chris is right on. I think, you know, now if you have $400 million and you've got a $200 million script and you've got 20, $10 million scripts, great. But it really is coming down to, I mean, we're in a split society now between awards season and commercial films, awards and commercial films. Um, when I was growing up,
Yep, commercial runs from January through mid September, early October. October through the rest of the year is award season films.
Yep.
That's why everything comes out, at least in New York and LA. They shove everything in November, December, which is why I had to wait till January to see American Fiction, much to Steve's shock. He was ready to go record this thing. I'm like, I haven't seen it. It's not in Dallas. It's not in Dallas. Oh, I moved from the specially selected theater market over to Texas. So we get everything late now.
But I mean, all that to say, I agree with Jefferson's point because we need those films. We need those films that are $10 million. We need those films. But if a studio thinks they can make 1.4 billion on Barbie 2, you better pray that Barbie, like, this is the same. I'm gonna really dovetail here, but the same argument you hear about superhero movies. You hear the stories about some auteurs. Auteurs feel they have to throw a cape on their protagonist in order to get their movie made. To find that balance, if you've got a movie that is really an inquest into the human soul, it's a lot easier to market it if it's got Batman on the poster. Not that that's
And that dovetails back to the whole argument of American Fiction. How many of those writers who were want to write real, genuine human stories full of depth and gravitas are selling themselves out to make their own version of My Pathology with Pathology Man?
Mm.
And how many of those people are making those movies? And I don't mean just like my pathology, but anything, so
Yeah,
that they can make those smaller movies. Like they can, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make some money, and then I'm gonna do this. You know what I'm saying? Like that's sort of,
because I don't think that the screenwriter of Madam Web got into this life, and the end game was that they wrote Madam Web.
you don't know.
Endgame
You
was
don't know. Maybe they're very proud of it. Maybe.
Okay.
On that note, we should screen it or skip it. Although it may be not necessary, but American Fiction, screen it or skip it.
doing it.
Screen it, open your eyes, open your heart. Black people are not a monolith. We're going through real stuff, real changes, real life, just like everyone else. And when you see these reactions of the stock white characters, be bold enough to be introspective and examine your own heart and your own self as you are listening to stories from the water cooler, and determine if you are allowing Dr. Dre records or whoever's popular right now to influence your belief on Black lives versus the actual Black lives who you are eating lunch in the break room with every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, it's a big screen it for me. I love this film. I thought it was great. So thrilled that it won the Oscar. And well deserved. I think it's an absolute screen it. Although now it would be stream it because I don't think it's in theaters at this point. But um, love this. Do you have anything you want to promote? Books. If anybody's
Did
written a
we
book.
ask Shayun, or did she already say screen it? I'm sorry.
Oh, she said
Oh,
screen
yeah.
it. She said screen it.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay.
I would love to promote you both, if I may. If there's anything you would like to promote.
I got nothing.
I have a book out.
There we go.
It's called A Story and a Play in Pursuit of Identity, and it's on Amazon Prime. It's my full name is what I go by. What's the word? I was gonna say legally, but it's my legal name. I don't know. I shouldn't say.
It's your name. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What is it?
You did not use a pseudonym as
Yeah, I
author
didn't,
of your
but it's
book.
not Seun, it's by Seun Olowo-Ake is what I'm trying to say. Um, yeah, The Story and the Play in Pursuit of Identity on Amazon Prime. On Amazon, right? Just Amazon. Yeah.
I appreciate you both. Thank you both so much for this. Reminder for you at home, you can find us wherever podcasts are available. You can like and subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on TikTok. We're on TikTok, and we're making it a thing. And as
So
always,
someone's gonna turn what I said into a reel. This will
you'll
be
be a
fun.
reel.
Word.
On the podcast and in the YouTube channel, of course, you can find lots of great interviews with industry professionals as well. We have new episodes dropping regularly, almost daily at this point. Plus more episodes, back episodes of Screenfish Radio. And of course, we have our website at screenfish.net. Thank you to you both for being on. I always appreciate our conversations. And to you at home, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.